Let's go to our, top 10 Sooners list.
Okay, do you want me to go first?
Run it, yeah.
Okay, so my list, funny enough, it just kind of shows the way that Chad and my brains are different. I went more of like an emotional route. So while some of these players were like the best, not all of them necessarily. And again, I'm not a stats person either. So they're all good, clearly, because I remember them. But they might not necessarily weren't all like Heisman's or butt kiss winners or whatever. But I will share my list now. So number one, I don't even have to have my list pulled up to know. It was Baker Mayfield. He's the quarterback through my college years, essentially. Mm-hmm. We all love Baker. What's not to love about Baker? So I really feel like I don't have to explain that one too much. Next one, who I know I've talked about also on the show, Sam Bradford. My 8th grade heart could not handle Sam Bradford. One of my first crushes. Obviously, good football player as well. So
yeah,
many a day spent rooting on Sammy B.
I'm a better golfer than him. Just saying that.
That is a challenge, Sam Bradford. So should you ever see this, he would love to actually play against you in golf.
Golfer.
Anyways, can we go to the comments, please?
Some would say that means better athlete, too, but I'm not the one that would say that.
What do you... Stop. You're going too far now. Anyways.
I don't know.
My next one I have on my list is Sterling Shepard. And I like Sterling Shepard. Obviously, good player. But what I liked about him, which resonated with myself, is he was not always the biggest guy, but he always competed. And that was something I always respected in Sterling. The ball could have been thrown 10 foot over his head, and it didn't matter. He was going to at least jump for it and make an effort. And that is something that I don't see so much now anymore. I feel like if it's a bad pass, kids are already like, oh, well, like no jumping, no leaning forward, just kind of like, well, I'm going to keep running. And I don't like that. And maybe because I was taught always do at least attempt. I don't care if there's clearly no shot. Just look like you made an effort. Just try to go above. And I always love that. And I love that he won a lot of battles because of how hard he competed.
Yeah.
So Sterling was always one of my favorites. Next one was Jermaine Gresham. And this is because my mom worked in the Ardmore Tiger athletic department when he was being recruited. So I got to be in the field house when like Bob Stoops came by, Pete Carroll, the guys from Miami. So I got to experience a little bit of that recruiting trail with him. And it was really cool to see him play to high school and then it translate to college as well. So that was also like, I was still very young. So it was kind of like a gateway into fandom, if you will. Which brings me to Mark Clayton, also one of my all-time, because he was the first jersey I ever had. Now, I don't think it didn't say Clayton on the back, but it was a number 9 Oklahoma jersey. And once my dad told me that was Mark Clayton, and every time I saw him make a play and I was wearing my jersey, I would turn to my dad, or my mom, but I just remember specifically my dad would be like, that's the guy on my jersey, as if he didn't know. But I remember being so excited and rooting him on game after game after game. So that was mine. Adrian Peterson. Need I say more? All-time Sooners, fun to watch. Next one might be a little weird one. But mine was Rufus Alexander, which I have met him. I met him at the clinic, I think my first year, the ladies' clinic. And it's just because of the core memory of saying "roo" after a big play. And it's kind of just continued the tradition with, Drake Stoops, Jilla Farouk. We could Boone for softball. We've continued doing that as fans. But I just really, really, I don't know, it just resonates with me. It's a core memory for me, so I had to put him on the list. Newer ones, Danny Stutzman. Great kid, great player. Going to miss him, and definitely one that continued to grow throughout this year and gains more respect for me because he stayed at OU during the NIL era.
Yeah.
So that kind of loyalty, just man, it really is hard to come by, and there's few and far in between anymore. So Mr. Stutzman, if you're reading this or listening to this, Mr. Stutzman, Danny and Mr. Stutzman, Papa Top, good kid. We're all very proud of Danny. Next one, similar, Braden Willis. Because hard worker, good kid, loyal to Oklahoma, loves Oklahoma, and I loved that about him. Played the Wildcat for us, did the best he could. So I just really liked Braden Willis, and I used to love listening to the podcast on the prairie and just listening to him talk and just the humility that he had. Love that. I'm really going deep into this, so sorry. I only have one more player, which is maybe an odd one too, but Dusty Dvorak. And it's because one of my earliest memories, we were living down in Lake Dallas when I was a child, watching his high school game, and my dad looked at me and said, "T, see that guy? He's going to go play for OU." And I remember watching him and rooting for him. And I told myself if I ever met him, I was going to tell him that was one of my earliest memories. Like, I was little, and I remember that. And I got to meet him, and I got to tell him that, which I thought was really cool.
That is cool.
So it was fun to get to tell him that. So that's my list, which is definitely, like I said, on the emotional.
What's your list? It can't be wrong.
It's emotional side.
It's your list.
That's my anxiety. That's my, like, I never want to be wrong.
No, I love that too. It's
anxiety.
It's literally a list. It's just your preference, and it's like, well, everyone will make an argument about why it's correct or incorrect.
It's
all preference, Who knows? It all depends on what you value.
Which is why I feel like I had to explain myself through it.
Yeah, well, it's so it could easily be you just put all 7 Heisman winners in, and you have 3 other spots. I didn't want to do that. That's I just didn't want to do that because it's just tough because how do some of those players how would they be in today's game? It's just tough to kind of extrapolate their talents into today's football, in today's college football world. But so I have top 10 ever all time, and then I have top 10 of people I watched. I'll go more into depth of top 10 people I watched, but the top 10 of my all time, and this is in no order. It's just my top 10 favorite players that I've watched. Are probably, in my opinion, the best. But Sam Bradford, Joe Washington, Billy Sims, Brian Bosworth, Leroy Selman, Baker Mayfield, Roy Williams, Jason White. And a lot of people forget how good he was. He should have. I mean, he almost won the Heisman the second year whenever Matt Leinart won it. But Jason White, Ricky Dixon, cold defensive safety, and then Adrian Peterson.
Wait, which list was this?
This is my top 10 all time.
Okay, I was like, Leroy Selman, were you alive?
It's no.
Okay,
I was like negative 18. I don't know.
That's why I got really confused.
That was my top 10 all time.
I was like, am I getting my timeline confused of when he played?
All right, top 10 era.
Sorry.
Of the era of the players I watched.
Okay.
This is what Kyler Murray, still for my money. Not taking into account, people like Baker's, I'm one of them. I love how Baker acts on and off the field. I'm just talking strict talent at the college quarterback position. Kyler Murray would be probably my number 1 overall pick of any quarterback that's ever played in college football because of his ability to run. Then you got Adrian Peterson. Adrian Peterson. By the way, going back to my top 10 all time, just real quick, I didn't include Marcus Dupree because he technically, I just don't, him leaving was a weird situation where he left. You could argue he was probably better than any running back OU's had. So I realized that's a thing. I just didn't want people to think I forgot about him. So anyways, Kyler Murray,
you're
Adrian Peterson. Well, it was just caveat. It's just defending technically, but yeah. Caveat, Kyler, Adrian Peterson. Then I go Baker Mayfield, Tommy Harris, Gerald McCoy, Jason White, CeeDee Lamb, Trent Williams, Ryan Broyles, and Sam Bradford. End it with the good guys. Sam was so my dad was I mentioned before he's been a coach for a long time. Roy Williams was in my top 10 all time. I didn't put him in there just because I like these other guys. I liked I had him in there over Trent, but then with Trent what he did at college, and then I don't know. I moved him out. But going back to Sam Bradford, my dad and I would get to go. He knew Merv Johnson really well, and so we get to go to practices when I was young and kind of growing up too. So we got to go see. I remember watching Sam his first year there, and I was with my dad and just seeing how it was like my first introduction to that level of athletes being around, and just seeing how it was just like seeing people that you just didn't think were human almost. How cool it was to see them practice and whatnot. I remember Sam got hit in practice, and this coach almost kicked the dude off the team. He's constantly saying, you don't hit my All-American, you don't hit my, because you can't lose your quarterback. But it was like a core, like stuck, like you were saying, a core memory. So that was really, really cool to see. And then, obviously Sam leading that 08 offense, still one of the best offenses ever, into the 5 straight games with 60 or more points. I still think you win a natty if you have a healthy DeMarco Murray. But, there are, obviously it just depends on what you value more too. There are people that would put another player in there that I didn't, but I just think that
it's a good problem
when
to
I
have,
am,
that it's hard for us to think of to narrow it down to 10. It was nearly impossible, which is why I had to go more an emotional route personally.
Sterling Shepard's a great answer. I mean, there's just a lot. You could go Jamal Brown would be another one you could put into the top 10 of mine right there. Outland Award winner. There's a lot of guys that you could put in there. But that was a fun thing. Just think through and kind of go look back at different players that you had. And D.D. Westbrook, Samaje Perine, like Caden said. It's
Joe Mixon.
Joe Mixon's another. I mean, they had
Mark
They had
Andrews.
some dudes, man. Yeah, 100% Caden.